Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al, week 8, and I've got my wide receiver rankings for you for your fantasy football leagues. When you play against your friends and your family, you definitely don't want to lose. So I try to give you my rankings. They're not always going to match what you see elsewhere. I take definite stands on players. I am higher than the field on certain guys. I'm lower than the field on other guys. I have my reasons. If you wanted to come by the stream one day and ask, would love for you to do so. I'm live on Twitch 5 days a week during the week for about 3 hours a day, and then Sunday morning the last 45 minutes before kickoff to answer as many questions as I can, as well as record the videos here for YouTube. So thank you guys for being here. Use this as your start sit information. If I have a wide receiver ranked ahead of another and you have, should I play this guy or that guy, play the one that I have ranked higher. That way you don't have to ask all of the different start sit questions. They're right there in the rankings. The guys that I have ranked higher are the ones that I like better. Let's go.
He's a legend.
The Smiz Gang Listener League is posted for week 8. It is a 5,000 person tournament, 5,000 entry tournament. It's $10. It is 3 max and it's absolutely no rank. The best draft. It does not exist in the lobby. The only way to get in is through my links. So go to smizzle.tv/links. You'll find the link to the Listener League in there, as well as links to everything else that I do. My Twitch stream, I'm live 6 days a week. My Instagram account, all of my different socials, my article on ESPN, which is Best Buys, the links for everything exist in the link tree. So go to smizzle.tv/links and join the Listener League today, because it's probably going to fill at some point on Saturday. So make sure that you get your entries in early. In the number 1 spot, Cooper Kupp. Yes, I know it's an extremely tough matchup against San Francisco. However, Cooper Kupp has really torched the 49ers. It does not matter how tough a matchup this is, especially including the playoffs. He has averaged 4 more fantasy points per game against the 49ers in 2021 and in his game in 2022 than he has against the rest of the league, where he's averaging like 30 fantasy points a game. Across that, he's averaging like 36 points a game in the games against San Francisco. So you're starting him with confidence anyway. Obviously, there's going to be some hand wringing. You're nervous. It's a tough game. And San Francisco held them to 9 real life points the first time that they played in week 4. But Cooper Kupp had 29.2 points in that game on 19 targets, caught 14 balls. He's the best receiver in the league for fantasy for a reason. You're playing him in all situations. You're never sitting him. Thank God he's back off bye week. Another guy back off bye week. There's basically everybody on the top of the list coming back from a bye week. Stephon Diggs, the American hero. He has a great matchup pretty much every single week. It doesn't matter who the Bills play against. They're going to throw the ball. The highest team in terms of pass rate over expectation. They drop back basically all the time. They throw it basically all the time. And the number 1 target getter in that offense is going to basically do very well pretty much every single week. 10 targets a game in all but 2 of his performances this year. In week 1, he had 9 targets against the Rams, still put up 29.2 fantasy points. And in week 4, he had 6 targets against Baltimore, 12.2 fantasy points, averaging 27.1 on the season. Justin Jefferson is back off a bye week. Thank God all of these first round wide receivers are back. Jefferson averaging 24.1 fantasy points on the year. This is full PPR. 100 yard or more in 3 straight games. That's 107 yards in week 6, 154 in week 5. In week 4, 147 yards. And he did not have a receiving touchdown in any of those games. In fact, he has not had a receiving touchdown since week 1. There is no possible way that Justin Jefferson is going to get as many targets and as many receptions as he's had. 46 catches so far on the year on 63 catches, and be held out of the end zone on a week in, week out basis. There is some touchdown regression coming here. And when Justin Jefferson starts scoring touchdowns, a lot like when Jamar Chase started scoring touchdowns, it happened not at all and then all at once. So look out for the Justin Jefferson regression coming for you if you have him on your roster. Do not fret. Tyreek Hill back with Tua Tagovailoa under center. Basically, it doesn't matter who's under center, I guess, because they're just going to throw him the ball. They're just going to find different ways to do it. And this is the thing that I like about their coach McDaniel, is that he's going to find new and inventive ways to get Tyreek Hill the ball. Even if Teddy Two Gloves is under center, even if Skyler was the guy under center, they just manufacture different ways to get Tyreek Hill the football. Now that Tua is back, more downfield threat because he is a better downfield passer than either of the other 2 options that are there for Miami. 13 targets against Pittsburgh, pretty inefficient, only caught 7 of those, as Tua admitted that he was not quite up to speed yet after missing a couple of weeks. 15 targets in week 6, 14 targets in week 4. Great matchup against Detroit's defense here. He's not exactly a boomer bust candidate because the high target count that he gets every week gives him a really solid floor. 14.2 points against Pittsburgh on only those 7 catches, no touchdowns, under 100 yards. 13 points against the Jets on 7 targets. So like, you've got that mid-teen realistic floor with the possibility of him really blowing up a game if he catches a long pass, or specifically a long pass for a touchdown, something he has not done since week 2 against Baltimore when he went absolutely nuclear. Wide receivers who have gone absolutely nuclear at number 5, Jamar Chase. The last couple of weeks, Jamar Chase has basically been the man. What you drafted him for if you were picking him in the top 5 overall. 3 straight games with over 10 targets, 3 straight games with 7 or more catches, and 4 touchdowns over the last 3 with 2 each in the past 2. 21.7 fantasy points per game, but a big arrow up here with 35.6 over his past 2 on average. 36 in week 7, 35.2 in week 6. Devontae Adams, I mean, he's just getting enough service to make it worthwhile. We knew that there was not going to be the touchdown ceiling. Well, okay, fine. I felt there was not going to be the touchdown ceiling playing with Carr and this Raiders offense that there was going to have been the last 2 years playing with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. He is doing just fine. He's got 5 touchdowns through the first 7 weeks and 6 games. So like, if he stays on that pace, he's on like a 15 touchdown pace, which would be awesome if he can maintain that. We've never seen Carr throw for that many touchdowns over the course of a season. He had 1 each in the first 3 games. In the last 3 games, he had 2, both of them against Kansas City, as Josh Jacobs has really blasted off with 6 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. And Devontae Adams has seeded those touchdowns. However, his targets have not gone down. 9 targets, 7 targets, 13 targets, 10 targets, the trailing 4 weeks. Really high floor, really high ceiling candidate. Coming back into the mix last week and announcing his presence with authority was DeAndre Hopkins. 10 catches on 14 targets for 103 yards. Did not score a touchdown. Did have a fumble in that game. Didn't lose the fumble. 23.3 PPR points. In the absence of Hollywood Brown, man, I've said this before. I'm going to keep saying it. I really wanted to see this Arizona Cardinals offense with Nuke Hopkins on the field and Hollywood Brown on the other side. I think that it's extremely important for NFL teams to have 2 elite level wide receivers, or at least 1 elite wide receiver and then 1 Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver on the other side. And Hollywood Brown definitely fits that role as Pro Bowl caliber plus, right? Like, he might be better than just a Pro Bowl caliber guy. He was doing exceptionally well until he got hurt the week before DeAndre Hopkins came back. So like, you take out those 25 to 30% of the market share of targets that Marquise was getting, and you slide them right over to DeAndre Hopkins, and he ends up as my number 6 wide receiver on the week. But I really wanted to see this offense at full strength, and we're not going to get that probably till week 13 or week 14 at the earliest. My wide receiver 8 is CD Lamb, coming off of kind of a disappointing week when we all thought that he was just going to have a tremendous week with Dak Prescott coming back. He did receive for 70 yards, 4 catches, only 6 targets. Like, double-digit targets should be on the plate for CD Lamb pretty much every single week. He did not get that. Only 10.6 fantasy points, 12.7 the week before, 10.3 the week before that, averaging 14.0 on the season, which keeps him ahead of AJ Brown, at least for me. So if you want to slide AJ Brown ahead of him, you go right ahead. But the touchdowns have not been there for AJ Brown. It's something that could regress. However, this is not a team that really throws the ball a ton once they get inside the red zone, and specifically inside the 5 and inside the 10. They run it with all the different weapons that they have, whether it's Miles Sanders, whether it's Jalen Hurts, or whether it's been like Boston Scott. Kenny Gainwell's got a couple of carries inside the 5. They want to just utilize their on the ground weapons as much as they can. I would love to see them utilize AJ Brown a little bit more as they get in close, but they just haven't done it. Although his targets have been solid, 8, 7, 7, 10, and 8, averaging 16.4 points per game on the season. AJ Brown will continue to be a wide receiver 1 moving forward. He gets Pittsburgh this week, who can be had through the air. Behind AJ Brown, I have Jalen Waddle, another week with 2 Dolphins wide receivers in my top 12. They've just been performing like wide receiver 1s. Last week, 4 catches, 88 yards. It's not just the floor, right? Now, I know he had 2 bad games, week 4, week 5, but that was with backup quarterbacks, right? Where he had 5.3 and 5.9 fantasy points. But in the games where Tua started and finished, 17.7, 43.1, 18.1, and 12.8. So a much higher floor with an absolutely tremendous ceiling if he can show everybody his heels and elbows and just run behind the defense after catching one of those 6-yard slants that they seem to be feeding him opposite Tyreek Hill. They have found inventive ways to get everybody involved in this offense. And while the bright, shiny objects right now are Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle has done a fantastic job this season in games that Tua specifically has started and finished. Deebo Samuel is at 11, and it's only because of the injury that Deebo Samuel is dealing with right now. So if Deebo wasn't hurt, right, it's not only because of that. Also, Christian McCaffrey is going to eat into the market share targets for not just Deebo Samuel, but Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle as well. It's not possible to go from being a team that threw the ball like not at all to its running backs this season, whether it was Elijah Mitchell or whether it was Jeff Wilson Jr. They just don't throw the ball to their running backs. You can look at how many targets per game they get. They have an expectation of a ceiling of like 2 or 3 targets through the first 7 weeks. So now you've got Christian McCaffrey, who's going to get at least 6 targets a game. That takes 2 a game away from Deebo, 2 a game away from Ayuk, and 2 a game away from Kittle if we're going to do it democratically, right? Now, that doesn't always work out that way, but you're talking about a running back who's going to get wide receiver-like targets, at least 15% of the market share, which is going to take everybody down. In his favor, Deebo Samuel has just crushed the hopes and dreams of the Los Angeles Rams for like the last 3 seasons, averaging a monstrous amount of fantasy points. He's got 14.9 per game on the season, and I don't have the stat handy. I looked this up yesterday on stream. It's like he averages something like 30 fantasy points per game in PPR against the Rams since 2020. It's been absurd the way that he has just absolutely abused them week in, week out. So I have him at 11 because of the drop, or the expected drop in targets, with an 80% snap rate that I'm projecting for CMC. He's just going to get some of those targets. So I had to take him down a little bit of a notch. If you want to rank him ahead of Waddle, ahead of Brown, ahead of Lamb, I'm okay with it, specifically based on the matchup, but I have him here at 11. Still a wide receiver 1. You're still starting him. You're not doing anything different. But that's the full context on why I have him at 11. Amon-Ra St. Brown was out with a concussion. He kind of did the hokey pokey, not him. The team did the hokey pokey. And it's probably based on the league directive that anytime that there is a concussion involved player right now, anytime that there's a player that shows signs, physical, visible signs on the field, and they leave the game, if they don't fully pass concussion protocol, like, they're just out. And he left that game early with a concussion, and then on Monday they said, okay, he doesn't have a concussion. So like, he was just held out because of the new adherence, let's say. It's not a new rule, just the league is actually sticking to the old rule of, if the player shows physical signs after head trauma, that you just cannot put them back into the game, because that was the mistake that they made with Tua way long ago. What was it, week 2? And week 3, week 2, they're just not going to do that again. Like, the optics are really bad. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, just as good a play this week as he was last week. Hopefully he can avoid any sort of massive concussion issues this week, play himself a full game, get his usual 10 plus targets, and eat for you as the last of our wide receiver 1s on the list. Take a couple of seconds and go to smizzle.tv/charity. Every single dollar helps as we make our march towards $50,000 raised by the Smizz Gang community. That's you. The bonus is, every $10,000 that you guys raise, I will personally match $10,000, hopefully getting to a goal of $100,000 by the time December 31st rolls around. All of your donations are completely tax deductible. They go through Tiltify at smizzle.tv/charity. They'll send you all of the tax paperwork that you need once you donate. Every single dollar helps. So please, if you enjoy the content, if you've won money this season, or if you just have a couple bucks laying around, and I guarantee you that most of the people in my community do have a couple of bucks laying around, go and donate to No Kid Hungry, providing school breakfasts and lunches to food insecure kids all across this country. Mike Evans comes in at number 13. I need to see this Tampa Bay offense do well. They play on Thursday night. This video comes out on Thursday morning. Hopefully, he'll catch that 70-yard touchdown pass this week. He's had a long reception in every game this year, at least 20 yards or more, minimum. 20 in week 7, 20 in week 6, a 40-yarder in week 5, 30 in week 4, week 2, a 41-yarder before he left that game after getting kicked out by getting into a fight with Lattimore. In week 1, 20-yard reception. So coming off a 15-target performance against Carolina in a game that they scored absolutely no points, and he dropped a long touchdown, would have given him like 30-plus fantasy points. Good bounce back spot for Mike Evans in a low totaled game against the Baltimore Ravens. I'm hoping for the over in that one, because I need that Buccaneers offense to be good. I just do. Football's better when there's points being scored. All right, I'm sorry. It's just, I can appreciate a defensive battle, but like, we're fantasy football players and we don't want defensive battles. right? I'm not trying to be the hardo from 1965. It's like, it's football weather and you youngsters just don't appreciate good running game and defense. You got to establish the run, and then you just got to get down there with them hogs and play defense. That's what it's all about. I tell you what. No, I don't want that. I want long passes for touchdowns. I want 30 to 28 scores. I want craziness. I want mayhem. I want insanity. And so therefore, I want the Bucs passing offense to be what it was in previous years. At 14, I have Tyler Lockett. Now, I'm assuming that DK Metcalf is not going to be able to play through the torn meniscus that he had. He's like trying to play. He's like, yeah, I'm not definitely going to be out this week. But then he's missed practice on Wednesday. There can't be, right? There's no way he plays, which just means that there's a lot more targets to go around. Now, not all of those are going to get soaked up by like Marquise Goodwin on the other side. So Tyler Lockett should see like 30% of the market share of targets moving forward. He slides in at number 14. Chris Godwin right behind him at 15. You can just replay the rant that I just had with Mike Evans. Now, Chris Godwin has not done a great job this year of being open. He grades really badly in terms of wide receivers who have been open on the majority of their routes. But like, it doesn't seem to matter to Tom Brady. 13 targets in week 7, 12 targets in week 6. However, that knee injury and that hamstring injury that he had in week 1, the knee injury lingering from last year, it's his first season back from that from the knee surgery. He's been getting peppered with targets, but catching like, the last 2 weeks, 7 of 13 and 6 of 12. Like, that's not his usual output. However, he has shown and flashed a great floor for us since coming back in week 4 from injury, with no less than 11.5 fantasy points per game across that span, with a high of 15.5. He's got to find his way into the end zone. He's got to get us more catches, but to do that, he's going to have to trust that knee and be able to get open a little bit more. At number 16, Michael Pittman. Now, you can go two ways with this. I went the way of ranking him down. You could say that the young quarterback Ellinger is just when they throw the ball, they're going to throw it to him a ton. What I assume is they're going to throw the ball less. They're going to rely on the run a lot more. 1, through Jonathan Taylor. 2, through some RPO, through some read option, through some design runs, waggles, whatever. Just naked bootlegs, rollouts, everything to get this mobile quarterback in Ellinger moving. And while Pittman should get 7, 8, 9, 10 targets per game, I'm not sure that he's going to get that. I'm also not sure that of the quality of those targets. So that uncertainty has me dropping him in the rankings to about 16. You're not sitting him if you drafted him. Like the floor should be solid, like question mark. 10 fantasy points should be kind of the floor here. But we did see him against Tennessee put up 6.1 in week 4. We only got 6 targets. That game, that type of game, not that game, but that type of game may be more on the table for Michael Pittman moving forward if Ellinger can't be very efficient. Now, in Ellinger's defense, it's not always this massive drop back down. We've seen backups come in and just kind of be fine throwing the football. Like Rippon, wasn't thrilling, but he wasn't worse than Russ. And Heineke is a capable backup, and serving his wide receivers and getting them the football. And Cooper Rush, albeit they throttled down, that's how kind of I'm looking at this situation, right? Cooper Rush won games, but that offense played much slower in Dallas. That offense threw the ball way less in Dallas, but CeeDee Lamb still did fine. So I'm hoping that even though I project them to play slower, even though I project him to run the ball more, it's very possible that he just leans on Pittman as his number 1 guy, and that's the hope. That's why he stays at 16. T. Higgins is at number 17. That's Cincinnati Bengals offense, since going to primarily shotgun all the time. Both and all wide receivers, including Boyd, have all been feasting. T. Higgins is clearly the number 2 in that spot. All the attention has to be paid to Jamar Chase all the time, not just because he had 2 big weeks, but it should have been paid all the time. You can't let him get loose, which means that T. Higgins is going to get his share. Guys who get loose over the top, Chris Olave, the rookie has done a fantastic job, and I thought that he was going to be able to possibly thrive in this situation for a couple of reasons. 1, Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas are great at running underneath routes, right? They're the short and intermediate guys. Also, he had a quarterback in Jameis Winston whose profile was, I'm just going to chuck it deep and then maybe you'll be there and we'll figure it out later. And the problem is they've been without Michael Thomas, they've been without Jarvis Landry, and Jameis broke his back. He's still not going to play in this game. The Saints just announced that Andy Dalton's going to be the starter. Now, the absence of those other guys has clearly boosted the target market share for Chris Olave. Since week 2, he has not scored less than 12 fantasy points. He's seen a ceiling of 20.6 and 26.7. So Like, I might have him too low in this spot. It's very possible that I just have him too low. I would prefer Olave with Winston. I still like Olave a whole lot with Andy Dalton. 14 targets last week against Arizona, caught 7 of them for 106 yards, and had a 41-yard long, 32-yard long in week 4, 49 in week 3. He is definitely a threat at all levels as a receiver, performing fantastically as a rookie with 16.8 fantasy points per game. Amari Cooper is at number 19, just keeps getting a bucket load of targets every single week. They play on Monday night, so you get a bit of a hammer in that spot. They are at home, so you home road thumpers can be all about it, right? Like last week on the road again against Baltimore, got 4 targets. On the road the last time before that, week 4 against Atlanta, 4 targets. In his home games, though, much better in terms of targets. 3 road games so far this year for Amari Cooper. He's gotten targeted 14 times. 4 home games, he's been targeted 45 times. So, like, I don't know. I guess 10 plus targets incoming because he's at home. The laziest analysis of all time. Home road splits. There it is. Gabriel Davis, again, same analysis. If you're playing with Josh Allen on a team that's going to throw the ball and drop back 70% of the time, you're going to have a good time. The Bills, every single week, the Bills basically have the highest team total of the week. This week, their team total is 29, 2 more than the next highest team, the Miami Dolphins, who have a team total or implied team total, expected points, of 27. Like, that's just how dynamic and great this offense is. That's where you want to focus. Team totals and real life points correlate the best with potential quarterback scoring. That is where we need to look, especially when teams throw the ball as much as Buffalo. Christian Kirk goes to jolly old England. He's at 21. Jacoby Myers has done very well regardless of who the quarterback has been. Only 2 targets last week, but still scored 11.4 fantasy points, averaging 15.4 on the season. The Jets have some really tough cornerbacks, and that's why it's holding him down at this spot, because, like, in a better matchup with a higher total or at home or whatever, however you want to put it, like, he does have 8 to 12 target potential. They're going to have to find more inventive ways to get Jacoby Myers the football because he is their most talented wide receiver. I know that the rookie looks like he's going to be good, Thornton, one day, and Devontae Parker has been solid, if not, as spectacular as an all-pro type wide receiver could be. They're throwing the ball a ton to Ramondre Stevenson right now, just out of necessity with Zappy. I believe they're starting Mac Jones this weekend, although they may be going to the quarterback tandem once again, which is, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks. Mac Jones does like to throw the ball to Jacoby Myers and in his direction, so increased target market share for him. DJ Moore is at 23. Speaking of target market share, the absence, exactly the same thing that is happening in San Francisco, right? Like, you insert Christian McCaffrey and you have to subtract target market share away from all the receivers that are around him. You remove Christian McCaffrey from the Panthers and you inject more targets consistently to the players around. DJ Moore was already going to command a large target market share, but you remove 25% of the targets from Christian McCaffrey. They have to get sprinkled somewhere else. DJ Moore does look like he's going to be about a 30% of the target guy for Carolina moving forward. And Deontay Johnson fills out the list for me at number 24. Another guy who should get targeted a whole lot in full PPR. It does translate very well. Even with Kenny Pickett not throwing the ball further than like 5 yards downfield on 90% of his throws, those are easily convertible into catches. That is an area of the field where Deontay Johnson does a fantastic job of getting loose. They should be playing from behind this weekend, or at least they project to, being massive underdogs to Philadelphia. And hopefully they run him out of the slot a bunch so that he can avoid Slay and Bradbury on the outside. So thank you guys for watching. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.